Not gonna be. It's not in my purse, it's in the bag. Well, welcome all of you. We are really appreciative you are showing up today. First of all, I just want to tell you, make a few announcements. And then I'll call on other people who will make some additional announcements. We have presently scheduled the school board forum for April 10th at the school board facility, as we have in the past. We have 3 races in that for the school board. Only 2 of them, however, are competitive. We have 1 unopposed candidate. So we'll only invite those in the contested race. And for the council, we have 4 places open. 2 of them are unopposed, and 2 are opposed. 1 with 4 candidates. So in one part of the city, they're really chomping at the bit, apparently. So that forum is scheduled for April 17th. Both of those are Thursday nights, which have worked in the past, worked reasonably well for us. We don't run into as many conflicts. That council pretty much ties up Tuesday, so it's hard to get them out for that. So that's upcoming. You'll hear more about that in the future. And
you'll hear about it if you sign up on our list. Get on our list if you did not sign up when you came in the door.
And Jan, do you want to give us the other dates of things that we have?
We have lobby days for the league, for the Texas League is coming up February 24th and 25th. And you can still sign up. You can sign up starting at it's over February 20th. So if you want to go to lobby days, you can sign up, and then it's February 24th and 25th. And Lenny and I are going to that. So we're excited about it. We have the dinner is coming, is also, I think it's full.
It's oversubscribed.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. And then we're gonna have, what day is it? For
March 22nd, Saturday morning.
At 10:30, we're going to tour the J. Nelson Institute at TWU. And so we're gonna open it up to everybody, and they're gonna do a tour for us on Saturday, and open it up for us on Saturday. So we're looking forward to that. And we might schedule a lunch after that, after the tour. I think that's all I have. We're gonna have a trivia night, but we haven't scheduled that yet. We might have that in April or sometime.
There are some more chairs up here. There are 2 right here.
We're so glad to have you all here, new faces here. So I think it's gonna be a good meeting with Elizabeth, and we're just glad and very welcome.
We're just plumb excited to see so many people. And are there others who need to fill us in on what we have coming up? Okay, assuming not, then.
Oh.
Yes.
We're starting voter registration at the community market on March 1st. Let's stand up. We're starting voter registration at the community market on March 1st. And we do it March and April. We're going to do it like every Saturday, and then after that, we're going to do it like every other Saturday. Many of you are voter registrars, deputy voter registrars.
what time is that?
It's on Saturdays from 9 to 1 o'clock.
Want us to sign up somewhere?
Yeah, it's a look for Denton Vote group on Facebook.
Or if you want to, put it up on our, sign-in sheet, we can contact you that way also.
Yeah. And we do really, because most of us, the same people do it all the time, and we would love to see you participate.
And it's obvious we never have enough voters. Anything else? Okay. Then we'll move along. And we are always looking for members. The league is a very, very worthwhile organization to be a part of. It does work you to death, but that's okay. You know, you're gonna die of something, so it might as well be something good. But the more hands we have, the easier it is, because that means you've got more hands to do the things with. And so it's not so hard on just any one person. So, and really, a lot of the things that we do are fun, even though the outcome in the end may not be so much fun, but we have fun doing it. We're a good group. And unlike some people, we're able to say, well, I know about that, and explain something when they say, I don't know what that means. I don't know what are they planning to do about that? So, and as women, we need to encourage other women, especially. We always need to be knowledgeable. We need to know what's going on. Okay, today, with Lobby Days coming up, we thought it would be a good idea to hear directly from somebody who's deep in the trenches what it's like in Austin and what they're working on. Because I can assure you, it's not what we want them to be working on. So we have today Elizabeth McNamara. Elizabeth has served as the National League of Women Voters president from 2010 to 2016. She joined the league in 1983. She's an attorney, and she has the nerve to have retired already. But we're trying not to hold that against her. She now lives in
Richardson.
Oh, that's right, Richardson, and she's a member. Is there not a league in Richardson in her?
Is, but I'm never calling.
She's a member of the Collin County League and very active, and she serves on the state board. Where is she?
Advocacy chair.
Advocacy chair. Don't have to, thank you. But say a warm welcome to Elizabeth McNamara.
Well, I really want to thank you all for having me. This is the first time, actually, I've lived in Richardson now for 6 years. I moved here in 2019 after 45 years in Georgia. And this is as far out as I have ventured northwest of Collin County since I've been here. Probably pretty ashamed of that, but nevertheless, I'm really delighted to be here with y'all. I am also your board liaison. So if you have any general questions or anything you need, I am your person to email or call, whenever you need me. I'm here and I'm going to talk a little bit this afternoon about the legislative session. I'm going to be talking about the legislative session from the league's point of view, what we are interested in, what we are following, and how many of y'all are not members of the League of Women Voters? Okay, great. So I'm going to give you you are an almost member, exactly. That's right. Yeah, we can fix this for all of y'all. And so I'm gonna, in terms of working through the legislature, I want to give y'all just a little bit of background about how we do that. Not just here in Texas with the League of Women Voters of Texas, but all across. We are organized in all 50 states, in over 700 different communities throughout those states. We're also, as Lenny mentioned, organized at the national level. where we lobby, the National League lobbies in Congress, state leagues lobby in state legislatures, and y'all here who are all of, are members of all of this, really do God's work down here on the ground, with all of the projects you take on and all of the voter service that you do. So sometimes diving into these legislative issues, it's important to understand what what we are empowered by and what we are kind of limited by. We don't necessarily follow absolutely everything in the legislature, and that's for a couple of reasons. Probably the biggest reason is that we don't have the bandwidth to do it all either. So we have to prioritize. Every organization has to prioritize. The other reason too is that over the course of 100 years, the League is a direct outgrowth of the women's suffrage movement. If any of y'all know anything about your suffrage history, the National American Women's Suffrage Organization was the mainstream, and by that I mean largely the white suffrage movement. There were an awful lot of other folks working for suffrage, but that organization on February 14th of 1920 became the League of Women Voters of the United States. We didn't quite have the 19th Amendment yet. The League was founded to finish the fight. The Texas League was founded in 1919 because that's when women in Texas got some voting rights. And that was how all of this rolled for a long time. As a state would recognize, as women became eligible to vote in various states, a League of Women Voters would form. And once we had formed that, of course, that means that we are spread out all across the country. We speak to legislative bodies, as I said, at the state, national, and local level. And so somehow you got to figure out how we're all going to speak with the same voice, because we don't all have to agree with the positions that the League takes on various issues. We just all, in order to maximize the power of that vote, we just want to be speaking with one voice to a particular issue. And we have a system for that. We have a consensus building process that we go through on a particular issue to get a sense of the group and to come up with a position statement that our members understand and at least hopefully largely agree to. And so it's from those positions that we have accumulated at the state and national level that we make that we form our testimony and decide what our legislative strategy is going to be. And we do that all across the country. So when I'm talking about where we are on issues, it's important to understand that we've been doing this for a very long time. Over the course of history, the parties, we're here, the parties will move maybe to the, that's my right hand, to the right of us or to the left of us, but we're where we are. And we don't change our positions just because the politics of the moment change. So when I'm talking about some of this stuff today, we are a nonpartisan organization, which means that we do not support or oppose candidates or parties. Our voter guides are not designed we don't just send them to one side or to the other. And we are nonpartisan in the legislature as well. The situation we find ourselves in these days is that issues have become more and more and more charged. When I first became national president in 2010, there was a situation in Austin going on with an ISD election. And one party had told all of its candidates, do not participate in forums with the League of Women Voters because they all go into the other party's primary. And this made the news. A wonderful letter went from the president at that time to the newspaper, either Austin, it may have been San Antonio, anyway, to the local newspaper. And I got a phone call to comment on some of this. And during the course of the conversation, the reporter asked me, he said, well, it's back in 2010, this is what we were talking about. You all are opposed to government issued voter photo ID, are you not? And I said, yes, we are. Well, how long, that's a partisan issue. The issues are not partisan. Well, how long have you been against this? And I wasn't quick enough at that point to say 90 years. We've been against this for 90 years. Any barrier to voting, we're against. But that's where, so, when we are taking positions, particularly on voting rights and all of that, this is not coming from a partisan point of view. This is coming from our league point of view. These are our beliefs and we stand up for them. So we are in a new session. We're about a month and a few days in. We have a new speaker. We just this week got House and committees appointed, and the Senate has passed SB2, which is the governor's bill for educational savings accounts. So at least kind of we're getting off to a fast start, and kind of we're getting off to a perfectly normal start. Unless the governor declares something to be some kind of an emergency measure, they really can't start, the legislature really can't start hearing cases until a couple of weeks from now, basically end of February, beginning of March. So I'm not going to have a lot to report in terms of particular bills, particular hearings, how things are going, because they, other than SB2, they haven't really gone anywhere. I also want to point out that elections have consequences. I think we all know that. The primaries were pretty hard fought in last year here in Texas. That was largely due to fallout from the 2023 session. If any of you recall, there was the governor's voucher, his governor's educational savings account bill that didn't pass. It just basically stalled at the very end of the session, despite multiple special sessions. There was the impeachment of the attorney general. There were a number of things that happened that have had a ripple effect in legislature. So we have a lot of new members, and that's going to change the tone. We're just not sure how and what all is going to happen. The Speaker of the House was among those that was challenged in the primary. He survived, but didn't run for Speaker again. So we do have a brand new Speaker. And there's also, of course, elections have consequences. There's going to be impact on whatever is going through the Texas legislature based on what's happening in Washington now and as we move forward. And where I have an idea where something that might occur, I'll mention it. The issues that the league is following, and this is not by any means an exclusive list, things will pop up that we weren't expecting. In the last session, we were not expecting the Death Star preemption bill, if anyone is familiar with that. A huge bill that basically said local government may not do anything, may not pass ordinances, may not legislate in their areas on anything in these titles of the Texas Code, like energy, natural resources, occupations. There were about 7 of them, and we were not expecting that. We believe firmly that the government closest to the people is the best government to make a lot of decisions concerning our quality of life. And so we generally tend to oppose bills that are going to try to take power away from local government. And we did oppose the Death Star. It's called the Death Star because it just zapped whole planets, right? If you're a Star Wars person. In any event, so we don't know. There may be other things that will come up that we will get involved with, but right at the moment, what we are focusing on are always voting rights and election law. That is going to be true throughout the league, every state, state, national, local. I mean, what would you figure? Probably about 90% of what local leagues do is voter service. Because it is so important and because you are closest to the ground and you are working with voters. And as I said, it's God's work. We are also following financing public education. The governor's bill, the SB2, which looks very, very, very much like the bill that didn't pass in 2023, only it's bigger and more expensive, is something that we do oppose. We believe very firmly in public education. A lot of our members are educators, retired educators, and we support public funds going to public schools. And we will be doing that again in this session. We are also very concerned about women's health care and also reproductive rights. We are a pro-choice organization. And, right, and so we'll be looking at trying to at least maintain any gains that we might have particularly for low-income, women in the state of Texas. We're also very concerned about gun safety, obviously, and so we'll be following bills there. We have an absolutely wonderful young issue chair in San Antonio who is very, very immersed in child welfare issues, the kind of child welfare issues that frequently end up in a family court or in a juvenile court. And she will be following some of those issues. And also, and this is kind of on a really bright note, we have someone following our water resources issues, which is obviously, I mean, we're in Texas. It's not that water isn't an issue or a resource that everybody needs to be concerned about, but particularly right now in a state like Texas with the number of different climates that we have and in a profound drought, and with all of the economic growth, we have to pay attention to that. This is an area where I think we're going to be, depending on how the bill, we haven't seen the bill yet, but I think we're going to be probably pulling with the governor, which is kind of a refreshing place to be able to be. He's made that a priority, which is as well he should. That's good thinking. I think he's mainly focused on making sure that there's a secure, there's a stable funding source for water infrastructure. We'd of course like to see a little bit more than that. But these are the decisions you make as you see pieces of legislation. So those are the areas that we're looking at. I'm going to touch on each of those briefly here in terms of what we think the high points, low points may be. And I'm going to start with voting rights because we are already seeing we're seeing a lot of things get filed. As I said, I'm not going to sit here and throw a whole bunch of bill numbers out there because at this point, there have been thousands of bills filed. Okay, but they're not being filed at this point. There are not many of them that are being filed by folks in the legislature that have a reputation for getting bills passed. So until we start getting hearings, until we start seeing what makes it onto a committee calendar, it's a little difficult to say for sure this is how this is going to go, or for sure this is what's being debated in the legislature. We're not quite there yet. Because again, the House committees were just formed Thursday, I think it was Thursday they announced the House committees. So we do know that we have in the Senate, election voting rights bills and election law bills go to state affairs. Brian Hughes chairs that committee, and I'll apologize. I don't always know. I know that Hughes is not necessarily friendly to our positions on these issues, but I can't tell you. I mean, somebody else probably here knows where he's from, and I wish I could tell you, but I can't. I can tell you, however, that in the House, the committee chair is Matt Shaheen, who is from around these parts. He's got at least part of Collin County. I don't know if there's any of y'all, or if he's got part of Denton, but I would imagine, yes, he does. So, and Mahela Plesa, the only Democrat in the Collin County delegation, is also on the elections committee. So for those of us here in North Central Georgia, I'm sorry, Texas, 45 years, 45 years in Atlanta. In any event, it's kind of nice to have, we've already got, the Collin County League has already got a relationship, and that should be good. That should be good. So what we're watching on the good side, John Busey, who's from the Austin area, and is the Democratic vice chair of the House Elections Committee, is carrying a Texas Voting Rights Act bill. I believe I think it's House Bill 2082, but don't hold me to that. This is, the wish list of all wish lists for those of us who believe in that everybody should have the right, the knowledge, the confidence, and the desire to participate in politics. Online voter registration, expanded voter photo ID, easier vote by mail access, and a whole lot more. So whether or not that will get a hearing, we don't know. Everybody knows that this would be a long haul, even if it did. But the bill has been filed. It's being carried by somebody who has got some clout in the legislature, and we'll wait and see what happens. This, of course, is a bill that we would be piling onto and supporting absolutely, throughout the session. It's something that's badly needed. The pieces of that big omnibus bill are also in various pieces of individual legislation. So, I mean, that gives you more opportunities to get some good things in front of a committee. And then we'll just see how that goes. Probably our biggest concern is there are several bills, one being carried by Senator Hughes and by Jeff Leach in the House, is calling for documentary proof of citizenship for voter registration. Any of y'all encountered that? Anybody have a reaction to that? It's, you know, it's one of those things where you say it, it sounds, well, of course. You know, I go and I present my driver's license when I go to vote. You know, I have, you know, they check all of this stuff through the DPS. They check this against Social Security. And by the way, they do. State and local officials do. So what's the big deal? And of course, that's what everybody thought 20 years ago when the first voter photo ID bill dropped in the state of Georgia. And I'm going to tell you something, because I was there and I was the state president at the time. You know, it was the stealth bill of the session. Everybody was worrying about, you know, the voting machines and the paper trails and the thises and the that's, except the League of Women Voters. And our 25-year-old executive director was the one who was screaming into the wilderness, this is the bill to follow. And it wasn't until it had already passed out of that, literally passed the session, that even the legislative Black Caucus realized how scary it was, because it sounds so mundane. Documentary proof of citizenship is government issued voter photo ID on steroids. All right. Only 2 states have actually tried to implement this, Arizona and Kansas, and they have both run into huge problems. There are a number of issues with this. If any of y'all are familiar with the National Voter Registration Act of 1993, it's one of the league's, I mean, it's the jewel in the crown of legislation for the League of Women Voters. We were on we in the NAACP were pushing this really hard for years at the national level. And it's better known as Motor Voter, but it does a whole lot more than allow you to register at your local driver's license bureau. It also governs how you do list maintenance, when you can do list maintenance, when you can, you know, when registrars and election administrators can clean up their rolls, because we do move, we are mortal, we do die. Things do happen. Voters need to be taken off the list for legitimate reasons. The NVRA establishes a procedure for doing that. And it does one other thing. Well, it does more things than this, but there's one other thing that's relevant here. It allows anyone in any state to register to vote on a uniform voter registration card that is issued by the federal government and requires nothing more than an attestation that you are a citizen of the United States. All right. So when Arizona and Kansas passed their bills requiring documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote, this case, everybody sued, and the Supreme Court said, no, you cannot require, for federal elections, you cannot require anything more than the oath, than what is on the form. So the logical thing is, of course, you don't have to maintain one set of voter rolls. It's just everybody does because it's cheaper, it's more practical, and it's less confusing. So Kansas and Arizona tried splitting their rolls. State and federal, don't laugh, this has been a mess, but they did it. And Arizona is still that way. I think the Kansas law has finally been declared unconstitutional after about 20 years on equal protection grounds, because they wanted to say, well, we are only doing this for people who registered after the effective date of the law, which meant that some people had produced documentary proof of citizenship and others hadn't. So Arizona did not do that. And I think you may have read real close to the presidential election, to the November election, they ran into a problem with about 200,000 voters that they discovered had been on the rolls for years, been voting for years, all of them citizens, but they hadn't they'd registered before the requirement and had not had to go back and amend and produce those documents. And that's the sort of thing that happens. Case again, Arizona got sued again, went up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court basically has punted it back. And so when we're thinking about this, we're going to have to be thinking, first off, where's your birth certificate? Right? Are you married? Did you change your name when you got married? I did. So does your name now match the name on your birth certificate? If you can get your hands on your birth certificate, right? Okay. Do you have a passport? I have a passport. I'm fortunate enough to have a passport, but most people don't. So, you got to think about what's going to be proof of citizenship. How are you going to present it? How are you going to get it to the right authorities? And who's going to decide whether it's good enough or not? Okay. And so these are the things that, of course, are particularly in the Hughes-Leach bills are just being completely glossed over. The Secretary of State will promulgate rules consistent with the NVRA and all the case law. And that's it. That's basically, and if it doesn't work out the way we want it, the AG will sue the federal government. That's literally that's literally the bill. But there are also bills that would require bifurcation of our roles. And remember, if we have a state voter roll, which is where most people are going to be, and a federal voter roll, they're going to be able to purge the state the state list whenever they want to. They're not going to have to explain anything because the NVRA will not apply to the state list. It will only apply to the federal list. So these are things that, again, don't immediately occur to you. But a lot of us work with our election administrators. A lot of us know we serve as election judges. We know how this system works. So put your election judge hat on and start thinking about really, how is this going to work out? There is a bill in Congress called the SAVE Act, Secure Our Election, our Voting for, I don't know. It's an acronym. Filed by Chip Roy from Texas, supported by Ted Cruz. It has passed the House, has not been able to pass the Senate yet. It would apply to federal elections, require documentary proof of citizenship, require you to present it in person. So you're doing wonderful voter registration drives. How many of the folks that you run into at a farmer's market or on a community college campus or in a high school have got their birth certificates in their wallets? And if they did, how would you communicate that to the state, right? Would you have to have copy machines? Would they allow copy machines? Would they take a copy?
Birth certificate.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, all of this, this is mainly messaging, but it's also serious voter suppression. And then I want you all to imagine that you've been registered in Texas for many, many years. You're also going to have to produce documentary proof of citizenship. So, and it's going to cost a fortune. So in any event, we are very, 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 very much against this. We don't know where the Supreme Court would ultimately end up on this. We know it was Antonin Scalia that wrote the decision back in 2013 saying that Arizona couldn't do it, could not apply it to federal elections, but who knows? So this is really one to watch. There are a number of bills. The only one that really has a companion and all those things that we look for in terms of, is this bill going to get legs, is the Hughes bill, but watch that one. The other thing that we're seeing is the Attorney General would like very much to be able to do election enforcement and all other kinds of enforcement that the Constitution prohibits him from doing, but we keep trying. Those bills are going into Senate jurisprudence. I don't know where they'll go in the House, but there are a number of bills trying to give the Attorney General some more authority to investigate various things like voting. And we are also opposed to that. We've got, local prosecutors are plenty able to prosecute or to charge whatever vanishingly rare incidents of voter fraud there are. And of course, non-citizens, the instance of non-citizens voting is negligible. It's like 0.00001% that they've been able to discover looking at millions and millions of ballots over many, many years. The other thing that may get to be an issue is countywide polling. Yeah, there is a bill to eliminate countywide polling. Have been, again, this arises out of the 2020 election and sudden scrutiny of election rolls. We have a lot of, most of which are election documents, most of which are public record anyway. And countywide polling, I think, just makes it harder to, I don't know.
We don't have it in Benton
Yeah.
County right now, so a lot of people here.
Don't know what it is.
familiar with that.
How do you handle early voting?
Early voting, of course.
Right.
You can vote anywhere.
Anywhere in
But
the
on
county?
election day, you have in Denton County,
Yeah,
which is an exception to most of the state.
right.
You have to go to your specifically assigned precinct voting location, and it causes all kinds of problems because of course, the locations change every single election.
Yeah.
We've got like 5 or 6 elections every year, and so every single election, it changes. People wind up in the wrong place.
Yep.
And then they wind up not voting. So
Yep.
it's another form of voter suppression not to have countywide voting on election day.
Yeah.
And our commissioners have said, oh, well, we're waiting to see what the state ledge does. That's their current excuse.
Well, if I were a betting person, my bet would be the countywide polling is going to survive. The election administrators are against eliminating it.
Yeah.
90 counties use it, serving 80% of the voters in Texas, which means that that's an awful lot of the proponents of this bill. That's a lot of their constituents. So this is something that I would be talking, because yes, locally it's an opt-in situation at this point. You can ask to do it. So there are going to be counties where they're just not big enough for it to be worthwhile. But in Denton, it's worthwhile. And I know what you mean because we had early voting in Georgia, not countywide polling. And so between the election day, particularly if you were a first-time voter, yeah, the confusion was just terrible. It's very confusing. So anyway, that's one to watch. As far as I know, there's only one bill, but it comes from a kind of a mover and shaker, not necessarily in a good way, from Houston. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But my guess is that survives. So it would be, yes.
I work for the election voting board, and so I do, I'm the Democratic judge.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of problems we had this year with seniors who have given up their driver's license, get a new ID, and ID is not populated.
Yep.
So that when you're, trying to check them for voting,
Yep.
you can't.
Yep. Yeah, and we are aware of that and have been trying to find some, I think the legislature has to fix that. And we've been trying, and there have been efforts, there were in 2023, there were bills that were trying to fix that very thing. And they just ended up running out of time. So I have not, as I said, I haven't seen, there are a lot of bills, and I have not seen one yet anywhere that is fixing that particular problem. But yeah, we're aware of that.
25 people who could not vote.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, this is we
That's
just
for mail-in ballots.
exactly, yeah, and we just don't necessarily keep good enough records to be in this country to be that dependent on them. So yeah, no, we're aware of that, and as I said, somebody did try and fix it in the last session. And I think there would be some motivation to fix that, mainly because so many of the voters that the legislature depends on are in that situation. So, but yeah, I understand. And if you're working all of this, you realize how confusing a lot of this gets to be when we just every single session tweak something here, change something there, and now we've got to learn all new stuff. So that's where we are. There are going to be other things that are going to come up, obviously. What?
Gotcha.
Yeah, financing public education is going to be a huge deal this session. As I said, Senate Bill 2, which provides for $10,000 vouchers for 100,000 students, and with a budget of $1 billion, has passed the Senate. This is still for, kids going from public school to private school, but, registering your private school kid for public school and then pulling them out and sending them to private school is no big deal. And in all of the states that have tried anything like this, I think the Senate Democrats had some statistics, I'm quoting them, so if this is wrong, that about probably 97% of the money would go to kids that are already in private school. And of course, the reason that all of our schools or public schools are gasping for funds is because of the games that kept getting played in the legislature to block these ESAs the last time. Now, how big a commitment there is right at the moment to actually increasing public school funding? If I were a betting person, I would think that, yeah, there's going to be, a 2-year shot in the arm, probably mainly for rural schools, because of course there are no private schools in those areas. And and then that will be it, but we'll see. So one of the things that we're watching very closely is the budget. The other thing that we're watching, and this kind of segues into women's health care and reproductive rights, because I don't think you can separate out women's health care from children's health care, is the anti-vaccine movement and how that's going to, how all of that is going to start impacting things. And although it is not right at the moment on our radar, if any bills start getting legs, we've already I'm sure everybody's read that there's been a measles outbreak in West Texas, and it's largely because of how high the percentage is. I think it's only about 14% of the kids that are taking a religious exemption from the mandate. And so, that's if it's that low a percentage can start denting herd immunity, it's something that we really need to be paying attention to. And we will be sending action alerts if any of these bills if any bill starts getting, as I say, legs. If they start running away, you'll be hearing from us.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
could you talk about the action alert page you have? I think you have something regarding the public vouchers now.
Yes. As I said, they passed the Senate, and we knew they were going to pass the Senate, and I am not going to try and mislead you in any way, shape, or form. I have not heard anybody, any expert, any prognosticator, anyone that doesn't say, we're going to get these things. It's just, they're going to pass. Too much political capital was spent in the election last year for that not to be the case. The question is, what are they going to look like? What are the details going to be? Can we get a better bill than what we have here? In terms of the action alerts, I was going to talk about that. When we send out action alerts, we'll send them to every single member. What an action alert is a really easy way. You click on an email, the system will find who we're saying, send this to the whole House, which is what we're doing right now because we had no committee to focus on. We're asking you to call your representatives, email your representatives. You'll be calling your representative, emailing your representative, and we have a message that you can send so that you don't have to worry about doing your own. On the other hand, you can always take our message and add to it probably the most important facts that your legislator wants to know. What would be the impact in your district? And so if you have that information, or if you can get your hands on that information, please add it. Because that's what they're looking for.
And that's on the League of Women
That's
Voters
on the-
Texas website.
It's on the Texas, LWV, it's LWV Texas, spelled out, TEXAS.org. Yeah, and you go to, you just hit the button at the top of the page that says take action, and the action alert should show up. There will be many more of those as we go through the session, more targeted as bills move through the session, so pay attention to that. Every member, when we do, gets a copy of the weekly capital action report. If you are not a member, you can sign up for these. You can, and on the homepage of the website, it says right at the moment for voter information, but the text number is exactly the same. It's 81 something or other. I don't have it down by heart, but it's on the front page it's on the homepage. Text that, and you'll start receiving the capital action report, and that's where the action alerts may be for the week.
Can you address the quickness with which our legislature has to move the end date?
Yeah, the last date of the session is June 2nd. Now, I will tell you, coming from a state that had a 40-day session every single year, which is more typical, this session seems like it's endless. It really does, 6 months. But things don't actually start happening until March. And between March and June, a lot can happen. It's one of the reasons why we depend heavily on partners with more expertise than ours. There are a whole lot of information sharing groups at the state level during the session that meet regularly. And it's sometimes their messages that we are sending, sometimes it's our own. But yeah, we will continue we can pile on to the legislature better than any other organization, I believe, in the state, because we have actual members. And we send our capital action report to 11,000 people. We would like that to be way more people. So whether you become a member or not, please sign up for our alerts, and then send as they come in, just send them. It's easy to do, and we can really pile up some numbers. Yes. Oh, I had a question here and a question here.
Elizabeth, I cannot seem to figure this out. Who is pushing the vouchers, and who's gaining here?
Private school.
Well, I know the private schools, but they're not as coordinated. There's somebody else, and I think it's ACE. I think it's an organization called ACE.
There are, yeah.
But I'm not positive of that.
Well, I can't tell you specific organizations. I can tell you that there are an awful lot of people, and three in particular in West Texas, with an awful lot of money, who really believe that our kids should be getting a private Christian education.
So it's the usual West Texas.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but it's also, no, it's not just that. There are national organizations that are pushing this, that are also, they're really well funded. And again, but they can still only cast one vote.
Right.
Which is why we've been able to, because rural legislators, this is an area where rural legislators have in the past really been representing their constituents. You get a little bit further out, and those schools, they're the major employer, they're the heart of the community. And there's, the best that's going to happen is you're going to start getting up some pop-up, what we used to call segregation academies, that are going to start popping up, and then they'll disappear because it's not enough money. It's not enough money to cover private school, regular private school tuition, but they'll pop up for a while. So plus there is no limit on the demand for these things. So the budgets have just ballooned in states that have done this, and it hasn't improved test scores. It hasn't improved anything. Largely because it's two different testing systems. The voucher, the private schools, they do their own tests.
Right.
So yeah, these things are not good. We are against them. I'm just telling you the political reality at this point, because of the last election, is that some form of these things is probably going to pass. but we're gonna do the best we can. And I have a question here and a question here.
Back to just the action alerts, and you indicated, I think I've received some of them and responded just sort of generically, but,
Yeah,
you know, adding impact, you know, to this representative's district or
Mhm.
whatever. Are there some resources? I don't know how many dollars are spent on, you know.
Oh, and
like
it's
special
just,
education.
you know,
in my
it's, I
area.
think this is more, you know, do you know any educators? Do you know, I mean, do you have, people with, your school board members would probably be able, and would probably be able to tell you,
And there's one here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great
Yeah.
website if you wanna know the number of private schools, and so I did this, because I live in Spillers District, so we have 12 counties, there are 7 private schools in the 12 counties. I found it by going to the National Center for Education Statistics. Quick, get there before that gets cut by.
Well, that's
But
still there.
anyway,
Well, that's still there.
And so it's in, nces.ed.gov. And so, yeah, 7 private schools in those 12 counties, 2 of them only serve pre-K and kindergarten. And then it also gives you the number of students they have, and so that's a total of 8.
Well,
Yeah, that's
and some of the questions that you also may want to ask, I mean, you've got a school forum coming up. That you might want to ask, I mean, or the audience might want to ask during your forum is, you know, how many kids with, you know, disabilities are being served by, the special needs kids are being served by because I've listened to the testimony on these things last year. And of course, everybody says, oh yeah, this isn't a problem, this isn't a problem. My dyslexic grandson was able to get wonderful help. And well, I have a dyslexic granddaughter. And, you know, the amount of help she needs is a whole lot different than a child who's on the spectrum or a child who has physical, who's, you know, struggling with physical needs, that you know, a wheelchair bound or, you know, a lot of things that the public schools do, and it costs. And there aren't any schools out there for kids in this situation. So, you know, it's just, you don't need a lot, but just some general information as to, you know, what the impact or what, you know, what local officials, don't quote any local officials, don't throw any local officials under the bus. Same thing is true with your election administrator. You know, we're constantly being asked to, at the state level to, you know, rally those election administrators, get them talking to their representatives. No. If you like your administrator, don't do that to your administrator. But we usually have pretty good working relationships. They're probably more than happy to tell you anonymously how this would impact your county. And that's fine. If it's coming through us, they know it's coming through us. If they're willing to share that information, then pass it along. And you can do it so easily with the league because we work elections. You know, we're there. And so, you know, we've got some real credibility in this area that some of our partners do not. So be thinking about this again, just a little bit of data or a little bit of information as to the prognosis for your area is really helpful. And that's true on almost all of these issues. So let me just run. Oh, I have another question here. Yes.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
But it's a quick question. So what is included in charter schools? Is Catholic, Lutheran schools included in that or not?
Any.
Yeah.
They could be religious, not religious, they could be affiliated with any particular religion. There's no restrictions on that.
And charter schools and
Homeschool kids will also get a different allotment.
yeah, it's a smaller allotment, but no, charter schools are already public schools who can turn people away. This would be vouchers that are going to private schools.
That's Catholic, Lutheran.
Oh, anything. Yeah, it could be religious schools. It could be any private school whatsoever. So yeah,
Must be licensed.
They have to be accredited.
they have to be accredited, but as I'm understanding it, they're probably accredited by their own standards and by different standards in public schools. You know, and they get to make up their own test. It's uniform, but it's a different test than what public schools have got to know. Yeah.
When I hear public school superintendents speak about this, they say it would be okay if we were on a level playing field.
Yes.
know, there's no comparison at all of the two different kinds of schools.
That's right, because accountability is a huge part of this, is that public schools are accountable for those public dollars, the private schools are not. They're gonna tell you they're accountable, but again, it's by their standards, it's not a state mandated thing. So,
It's an economy, testing for the state, it's an economy that won't go away.
Yeah. yeah, absolutely. So, as I said, it's, you know, the more we can talk to our representatives about this, the better off we are. But again, I mean, they're making a political calculation at this point. And, you know, I just don't know how this is gonna come out, but all of the wise people that we have been hearing from the Texas Tribune and all are not optimistic that this is gonna stall like it did last time. And if it does, I mean, our schools are suffering so much because the funding, they attach the funding, you know, to the bills. I'm just going to briefly speak a little bit about women's health care and reproductive rights. This is all going to be a matter of a budget. And last session, we managed to get Texas to agree to take the waiver to extend Medicare for postpartum care for 12 months. Medicaid, from, you know, to 12 months, from 2 months to 12 months. How that's going to go, I mean, I was talking to our issue chairs yesterday afternoon, and the question came up, what happens when, as I think has already happened, there's an executive order saying no more 12-month postpartum care. We don't know. Nobody knows, but nevertheless, funding for clinics, funding for that healthcare safety net that is so important to believe. We've got over 50% of the population in Texas is not insured. The figure is just absolutely staggering. And so, you know, keeping that money in the budget, getting more money in the budget is going to be, it ain't sexy, but it's where the action is going to be. The Lieutenant Governor, I know, has expressed some interest in making the heartbeat bill language a little bit clearer regarding emergencies, abortions in emergency situations. I will tell you that this is just my opinion. The issue with the heartbeat bill is less that language than it is the enforcement mechanism and the fact that you can be sued if, you know, you can be sued by everyone, everywhere, all at once, whether or not you were justified in doing this or not. Or you can lose your license, you know, you'll end up with the AG investigating you. And until that changes, I'm not sure much of anything is going to change. So there are plenty of bills come to, you know, repeal the heartbeat bill. I'm not holding my breath that any of them are going to get hearings, but they are there. On gun safety, the courts have basically gutted the state's ability to limit access. There was a push last session, got a hearing, got voted out of committee, and went nowhere to raise the age for the purchase or possession of assault rifles. But the courts have pretty much said, gee, there were teenagers that had muskets in the Revolutionary War, therefore. And I'm serious, that is exactly what they said. So what we're trying at this point to do is maybe we can keep election judges from being allowed to carry on at polling locations, because that's been filed again. It didn't get anywhere last session, but yeah. On child welfare, one of the things we're looking at is, and this, I don't know how much support there is for this, but it's looking at, there are bills been filed to help youth who are aging out of foster care to continue to get education, to continue to get support from the state, and we'll be supporting those. And then, of course, as I said, we're watching the anti-vax bills. On water resources, we're waiting for the bill. We haven't seen the bill yet. There's a whole group of really low numbered bills that are being reserved. They haven't been filed yet. One of them is going to be the governor's water bill. We think it's going to be coming from Senator Perry, from the Austin area. There is a water fund. Did we know that there was a $1 billion water fund? That $1 billion is nowhere near enough money. Everybody knows it. The governor's calling for another $1 billion as a one-shot deal, but he's also calling for a set aside from, gas tax or something like that, something like we do with the DOT and for road improvement, a set aside so there'd be a dedicated funding stream going into that water fund, which is something that, as far as we can tell, we are in a position to support.
They should be the best.
I'm all over that. I'm completely with you on that. I don't see that happening, but it would make too much sense, right? So, again, we haven't seen any bills yet, obviously, and this is another thing, because we did a webinar a couple of weeks ago, and one of the questions that I asked was how much of this is still under local control after the Death Star. Well, apparently water wasn't included. So, local and regional efforts, it'd be worthwhile getting to know those folks and talking to them at some point. You don't have to do it now, but, getting to know, as you're getting to annual meeting, as you're thinking about things that you might want to know more about in the upcoming year, you might want to be thinking about learning a little bit more about water in your region. What is the Northwestern or the North Texas Regional Water Commission doing? Why is my water so hard? Things like that, but you might want to know, what are you doing? What are they doing for future growth and things like that? Okay. So we've mentioned action alerts. I've mentioned issue chairs. We have volunteers around the state. Many of them are here in the DFW Metroplex who are following these issues for us. They are all volunteers. They are none of them experts, and they are all of them new, bless their hearts. But they're keeping track of these bills. We have a whole committee looking at women's health care. And so we'll be following, that's how we follow bills, is with our volunteers. They all plug into various information sharing coalitions at the state level, and they're responsible for writing testimony if we give testimony, for tracking bills, and for helping to write these action alerts. We have a capital corps of Austin area league volunteers who will deliver the testimony, since we're here in North Georgia, or we're in San Antonio, or we're in Houston. They will go and deliver and read the testimony, and leave copies behind as we do. File drop cards. In other words, just register our support or opposition. And we have lobby days coming up. Good news is we have lobby days coming up. The bad news for some of you, it's members only, because we're going to go talk to legislators, and we have a speaking with one voice. We're very careful about all of that. But there's still time if you want to join and join us in Austin on the 24th and the 25th. We will be doing some training in the afternoon, Monday afternoon, and then we'll go to the Capitol on Tuesday, the 25th, to speak to our representatives. We'll have materials. Right now it's too late to get a T-shirt. I think there are more T-shirts coming, but we have T-shirts so that we're recognizable, and that is something that I'm glad Denton is going to be represented. Respond to the action alerts, and as I said, think about ways. If you can think about ways that you can communicate local impact, they really want to know that. They really want to know that, and that may be the one thing that really starts to make a difference. If this is going to get me primaried because somebody is mad that we've killed the public schools or done something else, then that will make people sit up and take notice. So, any other questions? I think I've probably gone over time, but.
I think about the homestead exemption, because we had one passed last time.
Yeah.
And then to offset the amount of money that the school district would not receive because of the increased exemption, they have what they call compression. And it was, and I could be wrong, that's why I'm seeking clarification, is that they just allocate money for a couple of years to the public schools, but it's not going to be sustained over time. And is that what they're doing again now? Because it seems like there was another recently passed homestead exemption, raising it to like 140 now.
Yeah.
And have they said how they're going to address the decreased tax revenue for schools?
No, not that I know of, not that I know of.
So it's the same game and, okay.
Yeah, I mean, my tax bill was ridiculously low. I didn't get it, it
Yes.
really was. I couldn't believe it, that I can afford to pay more. What is this? I did not make a charitable contribution, however.
Is there anything for like the energy infrastructure? Because I know like in Denton, we're having more data mining that's being promoted by our council voting on it.
Yeah,
And in the paper, it's talking about projected energy shortages in 2026. So, I mean, I think data mining is taking enough energy to like run the state of California at this point. So.
yeah, I mean, it's not an issue that the league is following. It's just not an issue that we have a position on, but I do know what you're talking about. And I'll tell you, when I moved here, I did not realize that I was no longer attached to the national grid. And I was here for the polar vortex. Yeah, and it was pretty frightening. So I don't know. I think that may be part of the governor's motivation for suddenly being interested in our water resources. I know they keep saying that they have fixed the grid. I know they haven't. I got a gas bill after that I couldn't believe. So I think that seems to be the only way that we know how to handle this, is just let the prices float, because that'll somehow make everything unfreeze and everything work better. So I don't know. I don't have an answer on that. But you're right, it's a huge issue. So with that, thank you all so much for having me.
Thank you so very much. We appreciate that. Let's give another round of applause to McNamara.
I remember when I first came to convention when you were a national chair, and I thought you were so impressive, and I still think so.
Yeah.
Are there any other announcements we need to make about our programming locally?
Dan, can you repeat the things that are coming in?
I think we kind of did that.
We'll repeat them.
We want to be very much aware of the two candidates forum. You know, it really is a shame that we have these candidates forum. They are so often very poorly attended. And then in my estimation, that is, the wrong people get elected to school board and city council, and then we wonder why. We elected a person last year, I think primarily because he'd had a bicycle shop, he'd been in Denton forever, and he just kind of knew who he was. And it didn't really matter. We didn't concern ourselves with what he stood for, what he supported and what he didn't. We have a school board member who is, she's one of the banned books people. And I think that was because we just didn't pay any attention. When these candidates are running, there are opportunities to go out and hear them at our forum or at others. And it would really behoove us to get out there and hear what they have to say. and not just be surprised when they take away some rights or institute some rules that we don't like. It's,
The election, voting will be Saturday, May 3rd. There's only 1 week of early voting from April 22nd through whatever 7 days later. And that's it. Not the usual 2 weeks that we get with the general. 1 week of early voting.
it runs from April 21st
22nd, because Monday's a holiday.
through April 29.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we reach out to the high school, like, government teachers to make sure that their students know to attend these forums, like, they could, you know, give bonus points for attending the forum?
I'm not sure what they're allowed to do, but we got there's a real push to register the voters, the high school students, when they will become eligible to vote for the next election. That's always on.
Are given to the school.
But the thing is, the old people, you know, your age and my age, we're not voting. So we can hardly expect the kids to turn out if we aren't getting there.
And we do, reach out to UNT and TWU a lot of times and see if they could promote our forums. I don't think we've done it in the last year, but we have done it prior to that. It was, that's all, people, I think they had gotten, extra credit for that.
They've made it more difficult for professors to mention that at UNT, so I don't know what it's like at TWU, but I work at UNT. There wasn't even a polling place for the last election, and it had always been that church off of Eagle or yeah, they'd always offered up their location because it's in walking distance for people who might not have vehicles. But I don't know.
It's always a fight every election.
To keep a voting site over there.
A friend of mine is a professor in College of Public Health, and they were trying to tie public health is a human right. It's a voting, you know, to promote voting, and they were shot down for making just even a poster. She used to have people come in to talk about how civics is a human right.
We have been invited in before, and I know they are not doing that anymore.
Yeah, after the colleges can't.
Right.
Do it within the classroom, but.
Right.
If anyone is connected to a student group or club, we can go to the club meetings.
Right.
And we have done that.
Been limited under the elimination of DEI and
Yeah.
putting it under the
There are
But as I said,
bridge of belonging. And
April 10th, school board forum, April 17th for city council. And you need to be there, and all of your neighbors need to be there. You need to ask the questions. And then you need to vote. Yes, ma'am.
And you guys are probably doing this, I apologize if you are, but are you also partnering, like when we're having these forums with like Denton Record Chronicle as a way of getting the information?
They do usually come and report on the forums.
That's where I found information about school board people. They actually had some wonderful videos with a reporter like asking them questions. And I was like, oh, that was very enlightening to hear the answers.
Part of the problem that we have now is that we have too many places to get information. So that there's a little bit here, a little bit there, a little there, and nobody really has the energy, I think, to go to all of them. And so we're very fragmented now. And people often tell me, well, I didn't know about that meeting until after it had taken place. The newspaper simply doesn't do as good a job as it did in the past. It's owned by KERA now, though it's still being partially managed by the previous administration, which we hope will cease sometime soon, and maybe we can get more information back in the paper that we need every day. We're working on
And
that.
if
Yes.
did not sign up to get our emails, please do so before you leave. That way you can get updated as to our events. We also have a Facebook page. You can join, to get notices of our events.
Judy,
I have a question. Will there be questions or a voter's guide sent out to the city council and the school board candidates?
Yes.
Okay. In the past, well, it's been very common that many of these candidates do not just at the local level, but at the state level, do not answer these questionnaires. And it's been predominantly with the GOP. But several years ago, here locally, some of the candidates in the school board said, we didn't get the questionnaire. So I would like to suggest that if you send out a questionnaire, that you certify it or some way get a signature, so you know that they've received it. And if they choose not to answer, you know they got it, so they chose.
There's no way to prove that they got it. There's no way to prove that they.
Yes, the candidates that with certified mail.
Oh.
I think
Well-
we've done that through we've done that through email
well,
normally,
All
and
Okay, well, Yeah. it does make a difference, because I challenged someone at another meeting as to why they hadn't responded. And, it was obvious that they were sensitive to the fact that they had chosen not to respond, and they tried to defend.
well, in all of our voters guides, when we publish, if they did not, reply, we say that they didn't choose to respond to questions. And that's all we can do, and we obviously hope that people will be intelligent enough to not support candidates who won't answer questions in advance. And, we are famous for printing exactly what they said. Errors, it doesn't matter, we print what they say. We do not change a response. But we have noted, more recently that some of the candidates have decided sort of en masse not to attend our functions. Just the whole group will refuse to answer questions. And last time we were doing something, they even first indicated they would come, and apparently they made that decision not to participate at some point. And the ones who had already responded to me saying, I will be there, they didn't show up either. They sent me an email, text telling me they were unavailable for that.
That's going on.
So,
Yeah.
yes, I think these people have been working very, very hard a long time. We don't always know when they're working, but they're quietly working for the next election. They don't give up.
Yeah.
They just keep working. And so we need to be as vigilant as they are.
so Elizabeth, when that happened, when none of it was a school board forum, and so none of the opponents came, and so we had it anyway, and because they canceled, and so it was very informative, it just wasn't, the other side wasn't there.
But you had multiple candidates? Okay.
No, we didn't have multiple candidates, we had one.
No, but I mean, you had multiple, what I'm saying is, did you have multiple,
People on the ballot.
yeah, did you have multiple races? Because that's happened, yeah, we've had that problem in Collin County as well.
You put an empty chair.
Yeah, well, it's less of an empty chair. First off, we're not televising this, so we're not governed by the FCC. But the most important thing is you just, that's why we do, multiple House seats at the same time during our forums in Collin County, because that's been routinely happening. At least then we have multiple people. It's not quite so obvious that there's only one side being represented, and everybody's been, at some point, we just gotta say.
But we had the placard, and we had it there, and nobody was sitting there.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they had indicated they would be there, but apparently there was a last minute decision that they would just not show up. So we proceeded as if they must have forgotten.
Or they suddenly developed conflict.
Yeah, right, that's what it was.
All right, we thank you all, and I see so many, yes.
I just want to expand a little bit on the, how to become a voter registrar.
Stand up, Nicola, please. A deputy.
Yeah, a volunteer that you do the register. You can call the elections office. And because you have to pass, you have to, go through an education training. You can go to Denton, the votedenton.gov, to find information, but also I have the phone number, it's 940-349-3200. That's the phone number for the elections office. And the elections office is at 701 Kimberly Drive in Denton. It's off of 288. You can go over there and you go through the training, and then you take you answer some questions. It's not hard.
Yes.
Not hard at all.
And there's online training
Yeah.
or it, that you can do, it's right off the website.
So you get this year we don't have national elections, but we do have local elections, and they are very important. People don't realize how important they are. They affect us right here in our city.
And Nicholas with the Denton vote group, and I think last year they registered like 1,500 voters.
Yeah.
But even more important is to get those people to the polls on election day, cast the vote. Yes, ma'am.
I've listened to you all's conversation, and the question that comes to me is, due to all of the changes that's happening in our country and our state and the cities, have this particular legal women voters, have you pivoted to bring hope to the people? And this is what I mean, I said pivot to hope for the people. Yes, a lot of things is happening and it's not good, and you know it, but I do know that the League of Women Voters is a non-501c3 organization, so you're not partisan. So with that being said, here's my question to the organization. When the candidates do not show up for the forums, how do you all present information to the people? Because I know, the town I come from, we have a very active League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is a trusted group. And I believe that even I'm walking here, and I don't know you all, but it is a trusted group. So with that being said, what do you all do to present information, valuable information to the people beside a forum like this? I mean, an information session like this. What other ways do you use to share the information that the voter needs? Because you all know the questions that need to be asked, know how to, I don't want to say trick, but to provoke thought. So how's that presented to the people in this area?
Other than meetings like this, we do voters' guides, and we widely distribute those, which is one of the things that costs us money, and so that's why we encourage donations, so that we can we can buy even more voters' guides, and we get those in both English and Spanish. So we're trying very hard to reach the public. If you have suggestions for other things that we could do to get the word out, we would welcome those. Just have a little chat with any of us.
And if I can just build on that as well. The 15 years ago, the League of Voters of the United States established vote411.org. It is our website. It has every bit of, it is one-stop shopping for voter information. The National League has been promoting this heavily now for a long period of time. Many of our partners also promote it. All of the leagues in Texas, all the local leagues in Texas do put their voter guides on vote411. Lindy's also talking about printed voter guides. We try and supply, as when we supply a certain number from the state league, for not the local elections, but in every federal election. The state league also pays for, in order to facilitate this, because it is getting pretty prominently out there. We pay for the local leagues to be able to use vote411. As I said, we've got a tri-level promotion of that. They're all different ways that we try to get the word out there, because at the end of the day, you're talking about a message of hope, and I really hear you. One of the things that I've found most disappointing here in Texas, I was in Atlanta. I voted in the 2018 gubernatorial election between Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams. We became that close, that close. And the difference that organized voter registration drives throughout the state, and then really robust get out the vote, made in that race. She didn't win, but down ballot, it made a huge difference. So, you know, it can be done. We can turn this around, and it's not necessarily going to be in the legislature, because they are who they are. And until they're different people in the legislature, then our best hope is here on the ground. You know, if we can get, you know, if we can imagine how different this state would look like, this country would look like, if every eligible voter was able to register and did go out to vote, we would be living in a much different place. We can do that because we are in communities like this, because the Denton League is doing it, the Collin County League, the Dallas League. All of these leagues are doing the best we can to get out there. We could use, you know, we could use more ideas. We could use more partners. We'd love to be able to work with other groups to, you know, put our information together with their information and do the kind of outreach that it's going to take to get people motivated to vote. So, I mean, if that's to me, that's the most important thing we do.
And the Denton Vote Group, and they have their voter registration booths, for example, at the community market. They are also doing voter education. When is the next election? Where do you go to vote? The whole process. So it's not just voter registration when we say voter registration. It's also an educational component of that.
Yes, ma'am.
Does the 411 site, like, could you set reminders to text people, like when their local elections are?
Oh, that is such a good question, and I'm the wrong person to ask. My guess is, yeah.
I haven't gotten any, so I'm
Yeah.
probably not.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, but it's a wonderful idea.
I think the answer to that is yes.
I
We
think it is
have,
too.
yes,
Yeah, I think it is too.
Yeah.
the dates are on there.
Yeah, yeah, you made me sign up.
You have your market.
Yeah, we have our voter service chair at the state level. We do an awful lot of, the other thing that I really love about the Texas League and the leagues in Texas is that we've got a very, very good working relationship. We do a lot of trainings. We have regular meetings for those folks that are doing voter service at the local level. So we're trying to keep everybody as informed as possible. The National is doing their thing too. So I mean, this is an all out, you know, bottom up, top down effort at election time to get folks to the polls, to get folks the information, because there is so much bad information.
So you can go to the Texas League and sign up for text reminders, or you can text voter info to 80123.
And that's the same number that you can use now to get action reports. Okay? You can see our action reports, same number.
And I,
On the lines of, partner organizations, and I know there's probably more, just recently getting involved with a group called Vote Riders.
Oh, yeah.
They're nonpartisan, but their job, their mission is to go and help people get the documentation
Yep.
that they need to be
Yes.
able to vote. So people who don't have a birth certificate, they don't have the $45 it takes to go pay for it.
Yeah.
They provide that resource to them, and that would be something to push all the way up to the national league or
Yeah,
or
and-
whatever.
Yeah, that's how come I know
one,
that,
I know.
writers, it's with the national.
But that those type of things as well, because then it helps to address, it doesn't necessarily get people out, like Lydia was saying, but it addresses the issue of people who say, well, I can't, I don't have. And then especially here in Texas with all this noise about voter ID and stuff, some people are just afraid to go and get turned away, but they may actually have what they need to do it.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
all right.
Yeah, I just got an error though.
Says sorry to service.
Yep, I got the same, so I'm gonna go.
Thank you.
I will let somebody know.
Yeah.
Well, that's just one of the little problems we have. But we must be a determined people. I have been at this more than 50 years. I'm one of the lucky ones that now I don't have to pay to be a member of the League of Women Voters. I can just make donations to various things. But I've been working at this and I've met some wonderful people in the League of Women Voters, trust me. And we're just trying to help. We're trying to get what is rightfully ours, what we have a right to do. And when we don't, we just allow ourselves to be taken advantage of by a very small group of people. And they are working all the time, believe me. So we have to look out after ourselves and our own best interests, the interest of our children. It is very important, and it is much easier to keep rights than it is to get them back after you lose.
Yeah.
So we must always remain vigilant. And the League of Women Voters is the single best organization for getting that done. Thank you, Elizabeth, and that's all we have to say. But I encourage you to come to our forum. Don't miss the forum.
Then we have.